Writing a good story is hard. Making a good movie is hard. Transforming one into the other is even harder. Welcome to Adaptive Difficulty. This is a show where a couple of book lovers take on the challenge of adaptations. I'm Cameron, and with my friend Josh, we explore the difficult and sometimes bizarre choices that happen in the course of making an adaptation.
This week, we are exploring 2007's No Country for Old Men, written and directed by the Coen brothers, based on Cormac McCarthy's 2005 novel of the same name.
Hello, I'm Josh.
And I'm Cameron.
So where do you come from with No Country for Old Men? Exposure.
I've only ever seen it twice. This is the second time I saw it. And this is the first time I read the book. But I love this film. When I first saw it, it was whenever we took that film class in college.
Yeah. I'm similar to that. I think I had seen it actually just like a couple months before I saw it for the second time in class. I had just like a couple months earlier been like, this is a really famous movie and I want to watch something. And then it happened to get assigned in a film class, like an intro to film class we both took at the same time. The book I've had for several years because I got it at like a discount store. I started it a couple times and just never got very far. I don't think I made it out of like his initial encounter in the desert until I read it for this time. But you're saying you had never started or read the book?
No.
Prior to any prior experience with Cormac McCarthy?
I was aware of The Road's existence because it was always talked about to me as like a really depressing book. And I've not read that book either. I do know what it's about.
Do you know of Blood Meridian and like?
Yeah, I know of that one. I hear less people talk about that one, and I think that's just because of the kind of people that I hang out with aren't really like the kind of people that are going to be like, here.
Yeah. Blood
Meridian.
Blood Meridian is the like peak, like intellectual people are like, you know, Blood Meridian is peak, whatever.
One of my coworkers did start like listening to audiobooks on his drive to and from work. So he's like, I'm going to just read all of the Cormac McCarthy or listen to all the Cormac McCarthy stuff. So he's done Blood Meridian, and I think he's working through No Country for Old Men. And that inspired one of my students to read Blood Meridian. And right, this is like an 8th grader or whatever. So it's just very funny.
I also have a long commute now, and I've been listening to a lot of podcasts. But I was like, it would be more productive if I read like an audiobook on my drive. But in the past, when I've tried it, anything over a certain level of like, I want to say quality and importance is just like not comprehensible in audiobook format. So I'm like, this is a good time to read some like long running fantasy series because those will be easier to digest in this way.
Got Wheel of Time. Wheel of Time's always up there. It's got 14 books. That'll last you 6 years.
I'm working through The Assassin's Apprentice, which I'm liking. I haven't even caught up to where I previously like read it by sight and dropped it, but it's pretty good.
I feel like Cormac McCarthy might be I also feel a very similar way about like audiobooks where like I appreciate that they're there and they serve an audience that definitely needs it. But I feel like for most books, if I'm not actively reading it, like I'm not going to be paying attention to it. But I wonder if like the way Cormac McCarthy writes that I would be like, I could do this.
I was going to say, I feel like of all the like highly regarded complex literature, Cormac McCarthy seems the most doable that way because he's so focused on pacing, like how it's going to pace when you voice it in your mind almost. Mm-hmm. Feels like something he's very intentional about, and dialect and all this stuff. So
he's also not one for like, you know, incredibly long-winded sentences, which are annoying to read when you have to read them.
That's true about No Country for Old Men and The Road. He's actually like infamous for it in earlier stuff, like having an extraordinarily large vocabulary and involved sentences.
Listen, whenever they make a Blood Meridian adaptation, well, I'll read that book then.
Yeah, they've been trying to, like, since it came out, basically. I went back and read Roger Ebert's review of No Country for Old Men, which I often do, just like when I watch a movie that I know he would have reviewed. And he specifically mentions in it that Blood Meridian will be Ridley Scott's next movie, which obviously didn't happen. True. And yeah, so although Cormac McCarthy apparently has said or did say himself that it would be a good movie, even though other people claim it's impossible. So,
well, I mean, I think anyone who can actually do it would make it a good movie. There's just no one who can actually do it.
So, and to get back to the point, my previous experience with Cormac McCarthy was reading The Road for high school, which I think is pretty good. I get the impression from the people I see with opinions on it that it's like middle of the road Cormac McCarthy, but I think it has a lot of similarities to this one, including like a couple of specific images that are like sort of in this book, but like much more prevalent in The Road, like the father carrying fire in the snowy bleakness is like the entire aesthetic of The Road, rather than just like one image.
Yeah, I can see that. Only just barely knowing like the plot of The Road.
So then my other question would be prior experience with the Coen brothers.
I think the only movie I've seen by them is Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
And No Country for Old Men.
And No Country for Old Men. I thought we weren't stating the obvious.
You haven't seen The Big Lebowski?
No.
Fargo?
I know the main... No, I guess we saw Fargo, didn't we? Because we watched it in that film class. Or maybe I watched it in the screenwriting class.
That makes more sense, yeah. Because I feel like it's one of those movies where the screenplay itself is like famous and got published separately.
So yes, I guess I have seen Fargo.
This is, I don't know if it's good or bad timing, but if you've heard of the much more extraordinarily more popular podcast Blank Check, they're doing all the Coen brothers movies right now, and I think actually the Monday following this episode coming out will be their episode on No Country for Old Men, which, for the record, we put no planning into. We weren't trying to piggyback off of them.
So they stole it from us.
But I've been following along loosely with that. Like, if they're covering one of the Coen brothers movies where I'm like, oh, I want to see that, I'll put it on. And so I've seen Fargo and The Big Lebowski that way, but only very recently. And I've seen Hail Caesar, which is good.
Didn't see that one.
And True Grit, which is in the same way that The Road is like the book companion for Cormac McCarthy to this, True Grit is like the movie companion for the Coen brothers to this. Like it's another Western by them. Where do we want to start? Do we have more to say about the book, I guess? Because we didn't really cover our thoughts on just the book.
I think probably should just... what
straight
were your general opinions on the book?
I liked it. I think what we're going to run into, and maybe why you struggle to phrase that, is how similar they are. Makes it hard to divorce your thoughts on them from each other. But I think the book was good. It was extremely familiar because most of the plot beats I had seen twice before. Not all of them. I'm not saying it's like exactly the same, which some people like. There's this myth which just comes from this like joke that the Coen brothers told, where they were like, we wrote the screenplay by having one of us read it aloud and the other person typed it into screenplay format, which is like obviously not true. They changed it more than that, but it had a little bit of truth to it. I think it's fast paced. It's intriguing. I like one of the biggest differences is Sheriff Bell gets a lot more monologues because he gets 2 in the movie and he gets like 1 per chapter out of 13 chapters in the book. And I liked them. I just thought he was an interesting character to read. And I feel like you can also just feel like the author is just playing with like dialect as he writes it and like what sounds interesting for someone to say, which I just thought was interesting to kind of read it in my head the way I imagine Tommy Lee Jones saying it, I guess, even though he would have never known.
I do think that like those sections in the book where it's just Sheriff Bell like monologuing, I think were always the most interesting to me And I guess it's mostly because like it's not really in the movie, so it's like something new for me to latch onto. But I also feel like I just like Sheriff Bell is like the most interesting character to me in both the book and in the movie, which I think is entirely intentional. Like,
right, yeah. I mean, there's a reason he's the old man, you know, and it's called No Country for Old Men. I think this applies to the movie and the book, but I feel like especially in the book, there's this sense of like, oh, he's like a Fox News grandpa, you know, like he's like these, you know, if you ever told me there'd be people with green hair and bones in their noses, and they'd be my own granddaughter. But I also think, and this might be wishful thinking on my part, so I'm curious if you pick this up too. I do feel like there's an implied sense of like irony about him being kind of wrong about like the world going to shit. And it's less that the world's not going to shit and more that it always has been.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is like Ellis, his uncle's like point is that like, you know, this world has always just been kind of like bad for like all kinds of people. You just didn't get to experience it firsthand until like right now.
Right. Like, it's Sheriff Bell's whole take is like, you know, there's things out there that I just don't understand, which is like, you know, Chigurh and all this like violence. But every time he starts on one of those monologues, there's also a reference to like some act of violence or cruelty from the past, you know? So if you really pay attention to what he's saying like, well, things are just more violent than ever. But also, you know, 100 years ago, this fucked up shit happened too. So,
I mean, it's just like that conservative, like myth of like the past was better, but they're like valuing a past that didn't ever exist in the first place.
Right. Yeah, and it gets pretty blatant near the end, especially when he starts talking about just like, he basically starts saying like America is like rotten to its core and always has been. pretty doomer stuff. Which is just interesting because I feel like it's easy and kind of a opinion I see a lot online that like Cormac McCarthy just like became a like boomer. Well, I mean, he might have been older than boomers actually, but he just became like a conservative Fox News type in his old age and wrote like pretty good books, but with a super like conservative point of view. But I feel like if anything, to me, it feels like the books are him saying like, this is how I feel, but I kind of know that I'm wrong to feel this way, and I'm grappling with that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, that does make sense. I don't necessarily know if I completely agree with that, and I don't know that much about Cormac McCarthy as a person, and this is the only book of his that I've actually read.
Yeah.
So, like, but I get kind of hints.
So, my only additional piece of supporting evidence, sorry to interrupt, that I'm going to give for this, I'm going to spoil the road, unless you're not okay with me doing that.
I'll go for it.
Anybody who has not read The Road and wants to, I'm going to put a spoiler warning since this is not the subject of the episode. But, like, obviously it's about this father and son who are in this, like, apocalyptic wasteland where you can't really trust anyone because there's, like, cannibals and looters and, you know, the father has this idea that like if you extend your arm out, you know, it's going to get chopped off or you're going to get killed and eaten, which is probably in the society that he's portraying true to some degree. I mean, because that stuff is happening. But they're kind of not making any progress, I guess. They're just like walking somewhere to keep surviving. And it's not until the very end of the book where the son kind of, I can't remember the details, but he is able to greet this like family somehow. And it turns out that family has like a settlement that they live on. And it's not like, so people interpret it. Some people think of it as like a negative ending, but I've always seen it as like the father is doing what he has to just like survive and keep his child alive. But the child has this innocence that's willing to reach out to others and try to form a connection. And it's kind of showing that that's what's actually going to be required to rebuild anything meaningful out of existence rather than just subsisting. That required a lot more explanation than I thought it would when I launched into it. But I feel like I'm seeing similar themes here.
Yeah, I mean, and this is kind of in that book that you shared with me. But I think
Cameron's
that,
talking about Stacy Peebles, who is the person we took the intro to film class with, and also a Cormac McCarthy scholar, wrote a book on adapting Cormac McCarthy, and we read the relevant parts of it for this episode.
Mm-hmm.
I recommend it. It's called Cormac McCarthy on Performance. Go ahead.
But I mean, one of those things that they talk about, and I mean, this is not her main point, but she's talking about like how masculinity is treated in this book, and I agree with a lot of her points. I also think that there's several moments where like Sheriff Bell is like very dismissive of like masculine tropes of like the deputy being like so gung-ho about kind of like the violence and everything, and he's very much like passive and very like, I'm not gonna go jumping head first in all of this kind of stuff. So he's very much like not the stereotypical like Western sheriff,
right? And he also talks just a lot about like the conclusion he keeps coming back to is like, I don't understand the world, but at least I have my wife, which is like, to some degree, you could also see that as regressive, but also like this sense that like there's something that the world needs from women more than men as it moves forward, or I don't know. And it kind of felt to me like No Country for Old Men is like his wife book that is the like precursor to The Road, which is his child book.
I mean, I do think that like the role of women in this book is interesting. I think the movie's portrayal of Carla Jean I like more than the book.
Oh yeah.
But I also feel
I think
like
she's kind of pointless in the book. I think she's a stake at play in the book, and I think she like is relevant to the point and themes of the movie in a bigger way.
Well, yeah, because I mean, like, I think it's reinforced in the film because at the very end, it's Sheriff Bell talking to his wife, and it's like very explicitly like a conversation between a man and a woman. Whereas I think in the book, it's just kind of his monologue that you just get to see. Like, it's not like based on anything specific.
Right. Oh, the other book specific thought that I had, there's so much more emphasis or focus in the book on like exactly what type of gun or weapon anyone is using at any given time. And you can say like, well, in a movie, it has to be simpler because they can just show it. And so if you know, and like there's not really any reason to stop and explain, but like there's plenty of books that don't tell you like the exact model and caliber of bullet of every firearm that gets used.
Have you ever played a Metal Gear Solid game?
No, but does it do something similar?
Kojima's like a very big like military gun nut or whatever. So like in all the games, there's like extended periods of time where like they're just like showing off like weapons, and it's like, oh, look how cool this weapon is or whatever. And it's just very funny. And I was like, this is a little bit like that in the sense that like,
honestly, like Kojima probably likes Cormac McCarthy.
Yeah, almost certainly.
I'm just saying that on vibes. There's probably proof of it somewhere out there that I'm not aware of. But I just know he's a like major American author and director stan. So
he's never made a bad game, so
I hear. I am interested in playing them, but as you know, I just don't get around to that many games.
The one I'm thinking of specifically is from the third Metal Gear Solid game, and that one's just getting a remaster. I actually don't know if it's out yet. I don't keep up with this anymore.
Yeah, 1 and 2 already got like a package remaster, right?
You're asking someone who does not know.
Oh, well, maybe I'll start there. Because I'm sure I would like them. They seem like something I would like. Other than being
to be honest, I mean, to be honest, Josh, you spend most of your time in those games just watching cutscenes, and there's like occasional gameplay elements in between.
Never mind. It kills me. Okay, like video games are so like how do video games have cutscenes that can total like so much longer than a movie and just be like so much less efficient at telling us telling a story than one movie?
Oh, you want inefficient storytelling? Go play any Metal Gear Solid game.
It's like, I'm sure the sum total of the plot of a given Metal Gear game is probably like a few movies at least, but it's the length of like every James Bond movie ever made, not 3 movies.
I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things where, like, because usually you're not sitting there playing it all the way through, straight through. It's like broken up over time. It like hides its time length better.
Yeah. It's like, it also kills me. And this is my own cross to bear because I see the reasons that it's not solvable. But it's like when people are like, you know, this game has an 8-hour tutorial or 30-hour intro or whatever. And I'm just like, you know, you could sit your ass down and watch like every movie Orson Welles ever made. And instead of starting this JRPG.
I mean, yes, Josh, that is true. But that's the equivalent of being like, yeah, you could drink this apple juice, but orange juice also exists, and you could drink that instead.
Okay, but those are both juices, so that's a valid, like...
Okay, fine.
Well, this juice has more nutrients and is better for you.
Why drink apple juice when you can drink milk instead?
Yeah, why drink apple juice when you could do 3 shots of vodka? But, I don't know, it's just like, it's hard for me to wrap my head around, like, and not that I haven't done it before. I mean, there are like long games that I've enjoyed and played a lot of and beat. But like, it's just like you see people with 10,000 hours in whatever it's called, Planet Side 2, and you're like, they could have been one of the great thinkers of our time.
They are. It's just about Planet Side 2.
Well, that's true. Do we think it's going to be productive to go through this movie chronologically, or should we just like keep going by vibes for things we want to say about it in comparison to the book?
I feel it's better to organize it based off like the characters, and you can talk about what they do in the story kind of throughout for this book and this movie specifically. Because
Sure.
I feel like the plot's there. But, like, the plot doesn't really matter to me in terms of, like, how I enjoy this film or enjoy the book. Like, it's all about, like, the characters' interactions with each other.
Yeah. I mean, I think the plot's important only in the sense that I think it's incredibly propulsive and just, like, an engaged plot. Like, the fact that this is, like, just to, like, glaze the movie for a little bit, like, this is, like, a very seriously taken, like, Best Picture winner, academic articles are written about it, but it also entered the canon of like people who love the Joker from The Dark Knight also love No Country for Old Men. Like, it's a real feat, I think. It's just a very good work of blockbuster entertainment also.
Well, like, while I was reading the book, I was like, did you ever see that tweet that was like, about like customer service, and it was like they kind of had like a cartoon-esque detail of like a cartoon scene or whatever, and people were like, I hate this art style, it's so pathetic, it's so corporate and soulless. And then someone below that was like, is this the scene from No Country for Old Men with Anton Chigurh and the gas station attendant? And it literally is.
Oh yeah, it must have been like yeah, I know what you're talking about. That was within the last couple weeks, right?
And I was like, what are the odds that like this pops up as we're reading this?
Yeah, it must have just been some employee who was bored with the task they had. Yeah.
Well, it was like specifically about how like ways of de-escalating whenever you have a customer that you want to de-escalate from. It's just very funny that it's like that one.
So what character do you want to start?
I mean, should we just go for the biggest shark in the tank and go for Anton Chigurh?
Sure.
What
conclusion do you have about him?
I find his movie portrayal a lot more menacing than his book portrayal.
Yes, I think the book portrayal has like the core of how he's portrayed in the movie. Like, he's definitely still this, like, kind of unstoppable force energy, but he also just has this energy at the same time of, like, kind of like button down contract killer. Like, you could also imagine him just being like a guy who wears a suit and has like a simple haircut and like it's just like, I'm all business, in like a way that Anton Chigurh does not come across.
Well, I just think that, like, because you get to see a whole lot of Chigurh in the book, I mean, you see a fair amount of him in the movie, but like you get like used to thinking about how he like thinks and operates. Whereas I feel like in the movie, like there's some part of him, and that's just the way that he's like framed, that he's like just like this unknowable thing. Like you can't like get inside his head.
Right. He's occasionally a perspective character in the book, not in the sense that you like get his inner thoughts really, because you don't.
I know,
but just like he's the only relevant character, and you're following what he's doing. Whereas in the movie, when that happens, I don't think you get a whole lot of like shots from his POV. He's always this like menacing figure in the image, or you see like his feet with the silencer of his shotgun next to them. Like you're just watching him walk, and you're like, oh shit, he's got a shotgun. He's ready to mess something up. So yeah. I also think he occasionally has to like do tasks where you just like interact with a person normally, because he's like, he has to like check into a hotel, talk to people about his mission or whatever. And in the book, I feel like he just does those things normally. But I think the Coen brothers in the movie always find those moments. They only keep a few of them, and I think they find them funny. Like, they find it funny to picture this guy trying to like get a hotel room or whatever, and so they treat it as like this like dry joke.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that because you just see him interact with more people, he comes off less as like this kind of force of nature, and more just kind of like a very sophisticated, very like skilled like assassin for hire.
Right. It's like he's a professional and his profession is killing people, whereas like in the movie he's definitely much more like a homicidal maniac or lunatic, as they say.
That first scene whenever he's like arrested and the guy's talking on the phone, you just kind of see him rise in the background.
Yeah,
is like when I was first noticing it, I was like, this is a lot like creepier than how it is in the book. Like he's very much more like movie monster-esque.
Yes, and Dr. Peebles in her book describes it once the guy's artery ruptures and he dies, that Chigurh has a post-coital emotion
Smirk
on his face.
Mm-hmm. He does. I don't know if that's because I read the book before I watched the film again. Or I read that part of the book before I watched the film again, but I was like, yeah, she's just probably right about this.
I noticed that before I read her analysis afterwards, and I thought that as I was watching, I was like, this is a sex scene, except he's murdering this dude.
I also like whenever he's driving and he gets like the little tracker thing and it's like beeping or whatever, I was getting like Major Jaw vibes of like it's like the dun-dun kind of song.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say that. Like in my head earlier, I was gonna say like in the book, he's this professional, etc., and in the movie, he's just like he is the shark from Jaws. Like and actually, when I took Dr. Peebles' class, I wrote a paper that was just like No Country for Old Men as a slasher movie. Like what do we see in it if we take it as that? It was probably a bad paper because I'm not sure I would make that argument nowadays.
Well, I guess that makes Sheriff Bell the final girl, which is interesting.
Yes, that was my last paragraph.
But no, I definitely think I like the movie version a lot better.
Yeah, I think that's.
I also think that sometimes in the book he would like wax on a bit too long about being philosophical about like the universe and the rules. Like you still get that in the book or in the movie, but it's like toned down and it's not pretentious.
Yeah, I think the book is very good. Like, it's probably better than the majority of books we've read for this podcast so far, other than like the apps like Little Women is better than it probably. But the movie is like one of the all-time movies in general, and I don't think the book is one of the all-time books in general. So,
Yeah.
if that. So from Chigurh, I feel like we should go to Moss.
That works for me.
Least interesting of the three in both versions.
Yeah, I still feel like, I mean, it's one of those things that's like, he's very clearly, I shouldn't say he's very clearly, it seems to me that he's very much like, supposed to be a very flat, kind of boring character, because I almost think that he's like, mocking that kind of like Western hero kind of stereotype.
Yes, you got that analysis from the book that.
Well, I was thinking this. I was thinking it while I was reading the book, and then I was like, "Yes, Stacey Peoples is confirming all my viewpoints. I appreciate that I have a brain that works."
Okay, yeah, he's just supposed to be. It's kind of funny because he mentions like, "What's this guy supposed to be? The ultimate badass?" But it's kind of what the audience is supposed to be led to believe about him, and then have deconstructed for them. Like he's an ex sniper that served in Vietnam, and he's like super hyper competent, and like, you know, he's able to survive this whole scenario a lot longer than probably any normal person would, even though he's ostensibly a normal guy.
Mm-hmm. I mean, just seeing like how he thinks about things, of like, and how he goes about planning and fixing problems. I always think of that like scene whenever he's like getting the suitcase out of the air vents and like with like the tent poles or whatever. It's just very fascinating to me.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up. Like, I would have never come up with like put the suitcase in the air vents and then rent a different room and snatch it that way. And also, I will say that scene's a lot easier to track in the movie than the book.
Oh, that scene is incomprehensible in the book.
There's a few, because McCarthy in this book has this style, and it's something that creative writing classes sometimes tell you not to do, which is like describing every individual physical action that characters take. So he's very like, and then Moss went into the room and pulled the sheets off the bed and tied them around the tent pole and then shoved the tent pole, you know. He has these run-ons that are about like just discrete actions the characters are taking, and they can be so hard to follow. I mean, there's a few times where I just like moved on because I could not physically track which characters were where or what they were accomplishing.
Like the three moments that were like the hardest for me was, I think, him escaping the first drug dealers and getting into the river. And I think that one like worked for me conceptually, because it's like, okay, he's kind of like frustrated.
You at least
like
know,
discombobulated.
Because I feel like that scene, even if you don't know the exact specifics of it, as a reader, you know the genre trope of he's running away from people.
Yeah.
And you can at least resort back to that.
And then it's the fishing the suitcase out of the air conditioning, not the air vents. And then from there, it's that scene where he's throwing the suitcase over the edge, or kind of like tying it into the, like, when he's like walking towards Mexico. Like that scene in the book, and I don't know if it's because I was like late at night when I was reading this one. I was like kind of tired, but it's like, I just like could not get it in my mind what was actually happening.
I never know what to think about the line that's in the movie and book where he's like, Carla Jean, if you don't shut up, I'll go screw you.
I mean,
I get the sense that we're supposed to like see him be deconstructed and flawed, but I'm just like, it makes it tougher to follow him as the protagonist at the beginning when he's like, I'm going to rape my wife.
I mean, yeah. Honestly, I think we're supposed to find it endearing. I think it's supposed to be seen as a joke. And to what degree we can accept that as a joke is...
I think that's true. And I think Carla Jean takes it as a joke. So it's just like a joke between them, which is definitely the more comfortable way to take it. But he's definitely like extraordinarily dismissive of her in that first scene where he's just like, I'm not going to tell you anything that's happening. You're stupid for asking me. Go to sleep. Don't worry about it.
I mean, in his defense, he did tell her what was in the bag.
That's true.
But no, I mean, and this is kind of why I like the relationship more in the movie than in the book, where like in the movie, I feel like it's an easier way of seeing like that he like legitimately cares for her, and like like an equal way, as opposed to like, this is my wife, then I must like protect my investment, quote unquote, to like.
Right.
But this also kind of brings up the idea of like how so in the movie you have the hitchhiker girl, and in the book you have the hitchhiker girl, and in the movie you don't have the hitchhiker girl.
Yes, that is probably the biggest plot difference. For those who didn't read the book, there's, instead of the woman who offers him some beers, and it's like a 30-second scene in the movie, there's like, it's basically another chapter of the book or two, where he picks up like a 15 or 16-year-old hitchhiker. At least that, it never says her actual age, but that's his guess. And they just kind of like drift to like a couple diners and a couple motels. And I'll see if you agree with this. The only tension that those scenes have is the audience's fear that he will start a sexual relationship with the hitchhiker.
Yeah, I mean,
that's
it's
definitely
one of those
the
things
like
where I was
unspoken, not even necessarily unspoken, but like,
yeah,
like,
I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, this is kind of what I would maybe expect from like this point in like this kind of movie where he's like adrift and he finds a nice girl and it's like supposed to be like this comforting moment or whatever. And I think that he's like, he likes dancing around it, because I do think that he is like entirely committed to his wife. I just think he likes teasing her.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, she is like 15.
Right. Yeah, ultimately, of course, nothing happens, and he never even really broaches the topic in a serious way, but it definitely gets like brought up explicitly. Like, he's like, how old are you? And whenever they both die, they're like, I don't think his wife's going to like that detail. And they're like, no, I reckon she won't. But it's just, the thing that I think makes me feel worse about it, or about Moss, is that the girl dies too. So it's just this sense of like, he roped this like innocent 16-year-old into it at the very last minute of his existence, and then she also has to die.
Yeah, but I mean, that to me is kind of,
which is consistent with everything that's happened so far in the book, but just also,
I mean, I think it's like the thing that like is his like most inexcusable like selfish moment, where he's like, he drags this other person in there. And I mean, I think there's a degree in which he's like there to do some good for her, because I mean, he gives her money or whatever to kind of start a new life, and he's like coaching her through, and he's like, well, you know, you can't really escape the past is always going to catch up to you. And it's very like, okay, is this really the kind of lesson you want to impart when you're the protagonist of this kind of novel? Because like, that doesn't bode well for you.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I mean, it's almost in a sense where like, you know, his fatal mistake at the beginning is, you know, going back to the scene of the messed up drug deal, and which is what really gets him involved in it all. But
well, I disagree. But
well, taking the money and or going back to the scene, it's kind of ambiguous. But and that's
the tracker was already in the satchel. He would have been found either way,
right?
But yes, I do understand your point of like, this is a moment of kindness that the first one doesn't work out well for him.
In the book, it's almost like a second fatal mistake is getting to know this girl, which does not exist in the movie. The movie is like, ultimately his only fatal mistake is the stuff that happens at the beginning, which you could argue is a little more economical of a story.
I mean, I think you get enough of like this whole like, he's dragging other people like into this mess whenever like, I mean, this happens in the book too, but like Carla Jean gets murdered by Anton Chigurh because Llewellyn has to be a hero.
Right. And of course you see all these just like random other people who end up in Chigurh's path get blown away, you know? So if you stop to think about them, same thing.
But they're not, they're side characters, Josh.
True. Is that everything we have to say about Moss?
Yeah, I think so. I was sad to see him die 40 minutes left remaining.
Is it 40 minutes? Because, yeah, I thought about that as I was watching it, because I always had the impression that it was like a shockingly early death, but then I was like, wait, the movie is almost over because the only thing left is Carla Jean gets killed and Sheriff Bell like rambles a lot. But I guess there's just a lot of those two things in the movie.
I just feel like, and I don't know, it's just like, it's probably not 40 minutes, it's probably closer to like 30 or whatever. But I think it does like underscore like how like pointless his death is and how like it's not some like grandiose like hero story or like even a real tragedy, because it's very like, well, what about his death is like tragic in that regard?
Yeah, because tragedy in a more traditional sense has like a clear reason for why the death happens, and you would witness it so that you can like have that reason conveyed to you. More like, you know, Shakespearean finales, which this really isn't.
No, it's just kind of, I mean, it is related because I believe this is like, you know, he is murdered by people whose like money he stole.
Yeah, I mean, it is ultimately the consequences of his actions, but it's just like
there's no catharsis,
brutal
for
and senseless
audience.
Right. You're not left with like, I know why he died and it makes sense and it teaches me something.
I mean, I think
And
even
you have
in
to,
like, you get a little bit of this in the book because like you get the kind of like breakdown of what supposedly happened where it's like from like witnesses or whatever, and you don't get that in the movie.
yeah. As far as Sheriff Bell is concerned, I feel like we've already spent some time on him, but do we have more to say?
I mean, he doesn't talk about his service in while he's talking to Alice in the movie, does he?
No, that's like the number one difference. And that I think kind of is like the key to the difference in the themes between the book and the movie.
Okay.
Elaborate.
Elaborate.
Because the book is my theory that I was saying earlier, that it's the sense of like, Bell thinks the world's gone to hell now, but it's always been hell, including his own actions, his own, like, you know, he was in this war that makes more sense than like the Vietnam War, but like ultimately his individual actions are kind of just like, you know, reduced to this senseless violence and abandoning his mates or whatever. So it's a sense of like he is also this like corrupted or like never was pure soul. Whereas in the movie, you get the sense that, you know, maybe things really are changing and getting more violent, and Bell kind of has a point. But I think the theme of the movie, and this is in Stacy Peoples' book that we've been talking about, is more, there's sort of this like feminine, like women have the key that we need to make a politer society almost. Like that's why he gives this speech to his wife and she kind of like watches it thoughtfully. And, you know, Carla Jean rejects Chigurh at the end, like absolutely, which is also like one of the key differences from the book.
Well, so I really latched on to at the very end whenever Anton Chigurh gets hit and his car gets hit by the other car, that like he's talking to those two boys, and that happens in the book too. But like the thing with the book is that these boys are kind of like shown to not be nice later on. Like they like steal the gun from the crime scene, like they end up getting like arrested for it or whatever, and it's like, oh, this is a continuation of the cycle of violence or whatever. Whereas in the movie, it's just, I'm giving this man who's hurt my shirt because he needs help, and it's just like he kind of walks off and we're kind of just left with that. So it's like, is this supposed to be like a moment of kindness from a non-female character?
Yeah, but you could argue that young boys are essentially genderless. You know, they haven't been breached yet.
Well, I mean,
they haven't grown up into the world of men.
That's true. And you also might think about this in the context of Stacy Peoples brings up, I guess we should probably say Dr. Peoples now that I'm thinking about it, since...
Yeah, she wrote the book as Stacy Peoples. That's name
fair.
On the front. I've said both.
Dr. Peoples mentions the idea of like how clothing is kind of important, and like Anton Chigurh's clothing is like on the surface level like masculine because it's like denim or whatever, but it's like super clean and super like not like hand-me-downs.
Yeah,
kind of
it's
rough.
not. To be a real man in Texas, it would have to be already worn in.
And then later, when Moss is getting out of the
Got
hospital,
soft
he's
hands,
like,
brother.
he's wearing the like hospital gown, and it's like a dress for him, and it's like super hyper emasculating. And I'm like, well, this boy takes off his shirt, so he's like losing clothing, and it's like this is supposed to like make him more feminine too.
Yeah.
Definitely voted for Trump.
I think he was dead by then. Well, that's an interesting question because I feel like there's this, because you always see these things are like which cartoon characters voted for who, you know, and it always feels like wishful thinking because it's like I don't care how much Hank Hill talked about George Bush having a weak handshake, he probably voted for Trump.
Mm-hmm.
But
I mean, it's one of those things that's like,
I don't know.
you're just like, it's incredibly susceptible to like cherry picking your arguments and your evidence.
Right? And it's like, share it, but like, I don't know. Would he vote for Trump or would he just like, I don't know, probably sit the election out because he's like, I don't know what the world's come to, you know, this maniac running. But also he would not be able to vote for like Hillary Clinton, I'm pretty sure. So
No, the real question is, who do you think Anton Chigurh is going to vote for?
he definitely does not vote.
No.
If he's even allowed to.
That's a cop-out answer, Josh. If you're forcing him to vote, who's he voting for?
Okay, I'm not forcing him not to vote, but A, it's ambiguous whether he is a U.S. citizen or not, especially in the movie. But which election are we talking about?
Okay, that's a good question. Now I'm imagining Anton Chigurh in like an election, like crime-based, like movie where he's like the villain. He's like rigging the vote in some way. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, like, because obviously my instinct is to be like, he voted for Trump, you know, every time he was allowed to, but that's probably the reverse situation where I'm like, this homicidal lunatic better have voted for Trump.
Okay. Let's go it this way. Do you think he would rather vote for Thomas Jefferson or John Adams?
Well, I think he probably benefits from whatever society is less bound by strong federal law. So I guess Thomas Jefferson.
Okay. I can't believe Anton Chigurh endorses Thomas Jefferson. Now, so this No Country for Old Men Hamilton fanfiction crossover is gonna go so hard.
Now that you've said that, I can't Google it really quick.
There's no way one of them exists.
Anton Chigurh works. Filters, fandoms. So this is a list of all the crossovers that it has had. Well, okay, so no Hamilton. There is Dexter, which
makes sense.
is fair. American Gods.
That's interesting.
Sherlock, which
okay.
also makes enough sense because you could catch him. Ghostbusters, which if you think about when Sheriff Bell's like, I think he's more like a ghost. Makes sense. I'm just going to pretend that's what that story is about.
No, I definitely hope it's definitely an Anton Chigurh slime. Is it Slimer? Is that what his name is? The ghost, the fat ghost.
Yeah,
it's a male relationship.
Deadpool and the DC comic universe.
How many? So for No Country for Old Men, how many fan fictions are there? I have to imagine it's like less than.
I'm looking at.
I have to imagine it's less than 500.
So the Ghostbusters one was a fandom character deathmatch tournament bracket. Stay Puft Marshmallow Man versus Anton Chigurh.
I mean, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man has to win, right? Like he's like an extra dimensional being. Like Anton Chigurh is a guy with a pressurized gun.
Yeah, there's 163 works on Archive, and most of them are not crossovers, since there were very few.
Surprising.
Listed. It feels like one of those things that would come up almost exclusively in crossovers, because what fan fiction are you going to write about it? But
apparently the vast majority of them are Anton Chigurh original female characters that I imagine is just kind of like,
it's like a serial killer fetish thing.
Oh, look, there's one for Has Been Hotel. That's fascinating.
Okay, this is poisonous audio. We've got to move on.
What do you mean? That we're looking at how the modern audience is engaging with this story.
Did we have more to... We were on Sheriff Bell, and then we got sidetracked, like, almost immediately.
No, because I think
We've
we
already
covered everything.
He's a fuddy-duddy old fart.
But we love him anyway.
1880.
He's like a grandpa who's like slightly too problematic.
Yeah. So then I think what I want to move into, unless you have more to say, is one of the big focuses of the book we've been talking about by Dr. Peoples is the original screenplay that Cormac McCarthy wrote for this movie.
Go for it.
Are you okay moving on to that? Okay.
Go off, King.
So part of why I want to bring this up is because I feel like a lot of people on the internet, when I read about this, know the fact that it was originally a screenplay.
Didn't know that.
But what they end up implying is that like I think people have this image of like it was originally a screenplay. Cormac McCarthy just like took out the screenplay formatting and barely changed it into a book, and then the Coen brothers like turned it back into a screenplay. So I just think it's useful to dispel that notion and set the record straight, even though 8 people will hear this. So the screenplay was a lot different from the version that gets published as the book.
It's a more happy ending, right?
Yeah, it's an action-adventure story with they kill Chigurh, they get the money, like Moss goes to Vegas with his earnings at the end. Anton Chigurh's character is not Anton Chigurh. He is Edward Ralston, who is described as an elegantly dressed man with a mustache who has a sidekick named Milo.
This feels
which I feel like you can see the yes, but I feel like you can also see in what we were talking about, where it's like the book version of Chigurh feels a little more straight-laced and professional. Mm-hmm. I think you can kind of see its lineage from the original screenplay and the Edward Ralston version that is described. Bell is a lot different. His wife has already died at this point. He's also had he has a daughter, and the opening scene is his daughter's death at the hands of like a killer. So that kind of kickstarts his like, depressive spiral over the whole situation. And he has a granddaughter who like, has a terrible boyfriend, where he's like, oh no, the youths, have these like horrible biker, irresponsible, partners.
I just think it works so much better whenever like the suffering he's seeing is not for people that he like. I mean, he does know Moss like directly, but like it's not like a member of his family or whatever.
Right. And so basically that's the majority of the differences, which I think are enough to dispel the idea that this was like easy to change into a book. Like he edited it a lot. But also Bell and Moss. What
is so when did he write this screenplay? This is one of his earlier works, right? They mentioned it in the introduction.
It's pre him being particularly well known. It's in like the 80s. He wrote quite a bit before then, but his reputation just like really took off in the 90s, I think. So he was kind of writing, hoping to, on spec, hoping to sell the scripts and live, and I don't think any of them sold at the time. But
I just like wonder
Bell
how much of like the changes he made is a result of him like getting older and like developing as like a person.
Yeah, I think it's a question between how much did he change and how much was he no longer forced to try and write to what he thought was a commercial ending and product, because he had established his reputation, and they would publish anything he wrote by the time he wrote the book. So but instead of Bell doesn't meet up with Moss until Moss is dead in the book and movie that we have. In the original screenplay, they meet up, and Dr. Peoples says it basically becomes like a buddy movie for the last like the climactic sequence. with like the older, more conservative man and the kind of like freewheeling younger spirit. She gets into all this stuff about like, you know, homosocial versus homosexual identity. I don't think it's relevant right now, but it's in there if anybody wants to go read it. And basically they end up back in the desert and they have like a very explosive shootout where Ralston gets killed. Like Belle is going to take the money and like invest it back into like the county sheriff's department and like really improve it. And Moss gets half the money as like a condition of him helping Belle. But Belle is really motivated by the revenge quest of his daughter dying rather than just like his sense that like he's protective because Moss is like his county citizen and he feels like things are going wrong. So all very different. And she also points out that like the title is ironic in the original screenplay because it turns out that like Belle is able to affect a change and like old men do have their place in the sense that they like bring like an order and professionalism that can like bring down the bad guy in the end. Mm-hmm. Whereas it's a little more literal of a theme in the book and movie that we did. So anyway, I just wanted for it to be on the record on the internet that the screenplay is different. I can keep rattling off more things I thought were you also read the next chapter that was actually about the movie. I can rattle off the things I thought was interesting about, because she adds a lot of context that I didn't necessarily have, because I feel like I struggled to differentiate the movie and book to the point where I was like, what would I talk about on a podcast about this?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like having someone go through a couple of like the major changes between like the book and the movie. I mean, like right before I see the movie, is something I think like set me off on kind of examining various other things that were happening. So like,
yeah, I'm glad you watched it before or read it before. I was nervous to do that because I was like, it's going to overly color what I think about the movie. So like, but it definitely helped.
Yeah,
I think there's only a couple things it said that I don't think we've touched on that I found interesting, which is just in general, she says that this is a superimposition of the Coen brothers on top of the book, which just is like a word she says kind of applies to most movie adaptations, where it's like instead of just like a curatorial adaptation where you are just like taking the book to the degree that you can and putting it on screen, you are taking the director or the studio or the actor's style and overlaying it onto the book. So you start with like the story and characters that Cormac McCarthy wrote, but then you add in like specifically the Coens' love of eccentric characters, regional dialects, dry humor, and eruptions of violence, which I think is a fair way to see it. I definitely think of all the scenes that got added, like they're just like smattered here and there, they usually have like a joke in them, even if it's a pretty dry joke. I just thought it was interesting because I feel like this movie is weirdly similar to Fargo, even though it's also so similar to the book it's based on. So it's almost like, of course, the Coen brothers would do the movie version, because you have like the kind of like married man that's in over his head because he wants a lot of money, which is Jerry in Fargo, and Moss is less, blatantly immoral than Jerry, but they're like filling the same role. And then you have like the completely incomprehensible villain character with like Steve Buscemi and his partner Stromae in Fargo. Especially Stromae is just this like dead-eyed killer that's only interested in murder compared to Steve Buscemi. And then you have the like, kind-hearted sheriff that doesn't understand, what their slice of the world is coming to with a Marge.
That is interesting.
It maps so perfectly that, again, it's like almost hard to believe.
Is Fargo based off a book?
No. The thing with Fargo was the whole like, this is a true story. And they just like completely made that up and just put that title on the front for shits and giggles.
Yeah, that's just a little lie. That's a treat.
The the book we read also talks about the hamartia, or I think that's how you say it, of like the tragic decision or inflection point that a tragic character makes, which literally translates to off the mark. And it points out that like the first thing you see Moss do is miss his shot on the deer. So like from the very start of the movie, he's off the mark even before he's like made a more moral decision. I'm not sure what it amounts to. I just thought that was really intriguing.
Yeah, I think this is also the point where they like mention that like right before this is when Anton Chigurh kills the guy on the side of the road, and it's like he doesn't miss his mark because he gets like up front and like close and personal with it because he like puts it directly onto his forehead.
Yeah. And then heads and tails. Heads is like reason, and tails is this like base animal logic, which is why like, you know, when the characters call heads in the coin games, they survive because that's what Chigurh values, is this sense that he is a coldly rational man, like a perfect, reasonable specimen.
Yeah, I do find it fascinating, like Chigurh's like philosophy of like making him hyper rational, because I feel like he's like somewhat like superstitious in how he like goes about things. Like I think the whole like
like keeping his boots clean.
Yeah, I think the whole like, and some of that's like professional like killer stuff or whatever, but like his whole like spiel to like the gas station attendant is like, "This is your lucky coin. Don't mix it up with your other coins." And it's like, because it's like it traveled all the way here to be your lucky coin to save you from me killing you.
Well, I think he feels like he's an instrument of fate, you know. So he feels like whether the coin landed right or not. I mean, in a sense, it's like from our perspective, it's this irrational like superstition. But I think from his, he's like, I am fate, so this coin is also your fate. So it's not just a superstition. Like that's actually what happened.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Which, yeah, I mean, you can say is a stupid fucking thing to believe about yourself. So in that sense, it's a superstition. But
listen, I wouldn't badmouth Anton Chigurh. He's still out there.
Do they catch him in the book?
No.
I couldn't.
I think the difference in the book is that like Anton Chigurh like gets the money and then takes it back to the guy, and he's like, "I've got more jobs for a guy like you," which does not happen in the movie.
Yeah, it's more obvious he's a hitman in the book because I'm not sure it's particularly like.
Yeah, like,
I don't know if you could really figure that out from the movie if you're not expecting that. He is just kind of a dude who shows up and kills for that money.
And again, I think in the movie it's like more of like, oh, this is like this random like tsunami that just kind of like happens, or this random tornado. I mean, even in the book, it's like always entirely unclear like exactly who he's working for at any given moment. Like, and a lot of it's that he's just like kind of working for himself. Like he just does this job because he likes it, and he like murders Llewellyn and Carla because they like inconvenienced him.
Yeah,
he didn't murder Llewellyn. I don't know why I say that.
Yeah, but I also started to think like I do think he lives by a code in the sense that like other than Carla Jean, of all the characters we see in the movie, like he does only kill people who are like in his way. He's just very quick to kill instead of find any other solution.
He's also like, his definition of "oh, you're in my way" is a very low bar to clear.
You are near my way. But like the woman at the apartments or the trailer park who won't like show him, like I guess it's implied that he realizes he would have a witness if he were to kill her, which is why he doesn't do it.
As if he would not just murder both of them.
Right, exactly. But ultimately, she's not like truly in his way because he knows that Llewellyn's not there, I think. So she doesn't get killed. And like even the gas station attendant, like you could say, well, if the gas station attendant called it wrong, he would have killed him. But we don't know that for sure. And we never see the coin. Or, well, we do see the coin. But again, we don't know the counterfactual, of the story because that's not how the story goes.
Yeah.
Are we ready to... I think we've already rated it, but are we ready to rate it?
Yeah. Let's rate it.
First of all, to get the obvious out of the way, turning No Country for Old Men into a movie, baby's work, easy.
Oh yeah,
It was a screenplay. It was a screenplay already.
this is a Kirby game whatsoever.
But, and we can breeze right through this unless you have more to say. Like I already said, like it became one of the all-time movies, you know.
Mm.
So it completes it. It got the yeah.
I mean, like I definitely think this is probably like. Is this the best adaptation that we've had so far?
I think so. Yeah. We've had a smattering of very good ones, but in terms of just like raw, I mean, this is the best movie we've covered so far, unless you want to count Star Wars, which we did in the other direction, and that was not the best book we've read so far. So
I don't know. I stand by Holes as a film. Holes is
also,
like surprisingly good for like what it is. Yes.
I also wanted to check back in on you see, obviously after watching this, you see what I'm talking about. That Holes is just like this, right?
I don't really recall our conversation from a month ago, if I'm being honest.
Oh, I just tried to claim it was like a Coen Brothers movie because it's like a wacky crime with like strong, eccentric characters. A large sum of money that's central to the plot.
Mm-hmm. Let's have the Coen Brothers remake Holes, the movie.
I'm telling you, I think they would do a really good job because it's already like the family-friendly Coen Brothers movie. Is my like personal take.
I know, but I'm saying it out loud. That way, I get to push it into like the universe, so the universe rewards me.
Yeah, this is. I think I'm already at the point. We haven't covered that many movies, but I'm at the point where I'm forgetting which ones we have.
I mean, The Green Knight was very good.
Green Knight is good. I don't even know if The Green Knight was my favorite movie of the year it came out. Compared to this, The Princess Bride, is just like a completely different thing. Like,
yeah,
I would rewatch The Princess Bride probably 3 times for every one time I would watch this, but I'm not sure which one I would say is better.
Yeah, I think we just say that's probably the best adaptation we've had so far.
Yes, it is.
Although that will all change next time
when we cover the Super Mario Brothers movie. Isn't that?
Yes.
Okay. We didn't even discuss this clearly off mic. Are we watching Super Mario Brothers from the 90s or the Super Mario Brothers movie from 2 years ago?
I wish you hadn't asked me that question, because my joke would have been to watch both of them, and just whatever one you watched, I said I watched the opposite one.
Actually, let's just do both, because the reading won't be as intensive.
That's true. Plus, we can talk about what went wrong in one and what went better in the other one.
What made the one from 2022 suck when the one from the 90s is so good?
That's true. That's going to be our take, guys. You don't need to watch the film or watch next month episode.
Reading or watching anything else that you want to give a shout out?
I saw Weapons with my brother about 3 weeks ago, I think.
Yeah.
That movie is... Have you seen it?
No. I'm sure it's good. I just haven't seen it.
No. That movie's so weird. It has legitimately one of my favorite endings. It's hilarious. It's a horror movie, by the way. I shouldn't say it's a horror movie. It's probably more like a psychological/supernatural thriller kind of thing. With some like really good like moments of like actual like genuine terror, as opposed to just like jump scares. But there's this really weird sequence where one of the main characters has a dream, and he's like trying to find his son in the dream, and he like ends up walking back to his like house, and he's like, oh, he's in the house, and he looks up into the sky, and there's just a giant revolving AK-47 or some kind of other gun that's just like floating in the sky of the dream. It's never brought up again. It has absolutely no bearing on the plot whatsoever. It's just a very weird shot in a dream.
Yeah, I've heard really, really great things about it. I just haven't gotten to see it. I'm sure I'll watch it on streaming.
What have you been watching?
I'm trying to remember what was within this calendar month. I saw Jaws in 3D in re-release. It's a banger. The 3D is actually like extremely well done. So I think the re-release is out of theaters, but they re-release it like once every 2 years. So if you ever see it in your neck of the woods, It's worth seeing. The other night I watched Godzilla vs. Biollante, the Criterion Collection edition.
I should watch more Godzilla films.
They're fun. It's like, I feel like there's like a few Godzilla movies that are like shockingly like thematically resonant and well made, and that includes the first one and Godzilla -1 and Shin Godzilla. And not very many of the other ones. But I think Godzilla versus True. Godzilla versus Biollante is like the platonic ideal of like what the not serious ones should be. Like it's just a solid blockbuster. Biolante's not in it quite enough because he kind of drops out in the middle. He's like this huge. Basically, the way they explain it is like he's this huge plant that's like growing out of control. And they're like, he's like if Godzilla particles got crossed with plant instead of animal.
That's so funny to me. I don't know why. Do you remember when we were in college and for Justin's birthday we watched Akira, and he's like, it's that scene.
I was not there.
You were not there. Well, there's this scene where they're in jail. I think he's in jail. It's been a long time since I've seen that film, and he's talking about how like the atoms have like memory or whatever, and Paula just got so upset about that whole thing. And now I'm just imagining like her being upset about this is what happened if Godzilla DNA was crossed with plants.
Yeah, it was. It's not it's like Godzilla DNA crossed with a plant, and also like the like soul of this like teenage girl that it ate is like within it.
Sorry, it wasn't if atoms had memories. It's if atoms had souls, or because atoms had souls.
Okay. And there's also this like political subterfuge like subplot that like is less relevant than the movie makes you think it will be, where like there's this fictional country and Japan and America that are all battling to like take Godzilla cells so they can like grow grain and like control the cereal market, which is how Godzilla accidentally ends up in a plant in the first place.
Why is it not like, I guess I'm thinking too much like Jurassic World, where it's like which one's the second one? Is it Jurassic World
Fallen Kingdom?
Is it Fallen Kingdom? Where like they're like making
the haunted
dinosaurs
mansion
as like they're making like dinosaurs as like weapons of war. Why are they not making Godzilla like clones?
I can't promise that it hasn't come up, because this movie is all about like harvesting Godzilla cells for like defensive purposes. Yeah. It's just like, but I will say, as silly as some of the plot is, like the scene where Godzilla like comes back to life out of the volcano they threw him in the last movie, one of the hardest sequences of all time. Like I was like, fuck yeah! So, and of course, it's an all-time classic. Definitely belongs in the Criterion Collection. So,
I mean, you throw anyone into a volcano, I'm right there.
Well, that happened in the previous entry. He came out of the volcano in this one.
Oh, okay. Wait, did they throw him in the volcano in the last film to like specifically bring him back to life, or was it like Godzilla?
No, it was how they got rid of him. Because like Godzilla series always start with like there's one movie where he's a problem on his own and they have to stop him, and then the rest of the movies there's like another problem and he comes back to help with it. So this is the 80s series, and the Return of Godzilla, he's just like a problem, and they get rid of him by throwing him into a volcano. And then in this movie, somebody who's being a little shit summons him out of the volcano for their own purposes.
Okay. This is so fascinating to me as like a concept. Like
it's a good time.
Why did it stop him in the first place? Like, why does he like, okay, you guys threw me in a volcano,
well,
like
you get thrown into a volcano and see how you're faring.
But then how does he come out of the volcano fine, ready to fight Mothra or whoever the fuck?
Don't worry about it. The last thing I'll say is there is like a scene where they go to this school where like all the kids have been having the same dream, and then they hold up the picture of what they've been dreaming of, and it's Godzilla. It never comes up again other than like a warning that Godzilla is going to come soon.
It's like, guys, don't worry, you bought the right ticket to the right movie.
I'm going to stick with that as my one recommendation outside of No Country for Old Men.
I do.
I can't say if you like No Country for Old Men, you'll like it. So it's not really relevant. But
I think
everybody would like it and should watch.
I don't know.
I think if you like No Country for Old Men, you should watch True Grit. That's my actual. Just watch the next movie they made.
I think if you like No Country for Old Men, you should watch the Super Mario Bros. Movie because that's what we're talking about next month.
Fair enough. Wrap us up. Oh, wait. I forgot to say. You can rate us on Spotify and Apple or whatever podcatcher you use that allows ratings. 5 stars only, please. It's what we deserve.
It's like Uber or whatever. Like if it's not 5 stars, it's worthless.
Comments are even better if you have anything you want to say. If you just want to get in touch with us for whatever reason, we are at adaptivedifficultypod@gmail.com. If you message us, we will see it. And if you tell us to do a certain movie, we will probably do it. So you have a direct line.
Okay. Well, that's all. As always, we'd like to give credit to those that made this podcast possible, those that worked on the adaptation. A great big thanks for making the world a little bit more artful. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Join us next time for some deep questions with the Super Mario Bros. Movie.